Setting up a virtual private server without a firewall is just asking for trouble. Ideally, you'd have a dedicated security person to handle all of this, but that's rarely the case. One of the things I always do on a fresh Linux server is configure a firewall. It used to be a real headache, but Ubuntu ships with the Uncomplicated Firewall, and that changes things considerably. In this video, we'll cover what a firewall actually does, how to configure UFW on Ubuntu 24.04, which is currently the long-term support release as of this recording, but 26.04 is right around the corner, but the commands won't differ that much. Hello, developers, and welcome to the PHP Architect Community Corner. I'm your host, Scott Keck-Warren. If you're new here, we cover topics related to the PHP ecosystem, and subscribe so you don't miss our videos when they come out. So at a very basic level, a firewall monitors and controls incoming and outgoing network traffic based on rules that you define. I like to think of it as a gatekeeper. It decides which connections to allow and which to block based on things like port number and protocol. Without one, every open port on your server is reachable by anyone on the internet, including automated scanners that are constantly sweeping for vulnerabilities. Unlike a hardware firewall, which is a physical device on your network, a software firewall runs directly on your server, giving you control over that specific machine with little to no CPU overhead. Now, annoyingly, most operating systems include a built-in firewall, but it's not always enabled by default, so we have to turn it on. Tools like Shodan make it trivial to find every open port on the internet, and when a 0-day drops, suddenly that forgotten open port is a liability. We want to keep only ports that are necessary open so we can control our attack surface. Linux has a built-in firewall tool called iptables, and it's extremely powerful. The problem is that iptables look something like this. Now, one rule isn't too bad, 10 or 15, and the config becomes almost unreadable as far as I'm concerned. And you also need to worry about ordering, where you might disable all network traffic in general, which I, have done before. Thankfully, UFW sits on top of iptables and lets you write firewall rules in something closer to plain English. It comes pre-installed on Ubuntu, so most of you already have it, even if it's turned off by default. Now, before we go any further, I need to tell you the single most common mistake people make when setting up firewalls. I've seen it happen to experienced developers, and I might have even done it once or twice myself. I'm not saying either way, but you can guess. The most important rule is to always allow SSH before you enable UFW. When you enable UFW, the default behavior is to deny all incoming rules unless there's an explicit allow rule. If you enable it without adding an SSH rule first, you've locked yourself out. And the only fix is to log into your emergency console and disable UFW if you can even get to it. So my rule is very simple. SSH first, enable second, every time. Another quick tip is if you're making a complex change, you can add a cron tab entry to automatically disable UFW every 5 minutes. And the worst case is you're only locked out for 5 minutes. This is an example of what I like to use, and I actually used it while developing this script. But you absolutely must remember to remove it when you're done making changes, or your firewall will just keep turning off. It's really frustrating when it does. We'll be back after this word from our partners. As a programmer, you know that code reviews are critical, but are also time-consuming. CodeRabbit acts as your AI co-pilot, providing instant code review comments and potential impacts of every pull request. Beyond just flagging issues, CodeRabbit provides one-click fix solutions and lets you define custom code quality rules using AST grep patterns, catching subtle issues that traditional static analysis tools might miss. CodeRabbit reviews 1 million pull requests every week across 3 million repositories and is used by 100,000 open source projects. CodeRabbit is free for all open source project repos. Get started today at phpa.me/CodeRabbit. That's phpa.me/CodeRabbit. Let's start by checking whether UFW is already on our system. And we can see from the output that it is here, it's just that it's turned off. If the command isn't found, UFW isn't installed, but you can install it with apt. I should point out that I haven't actually tested this, as I don't have an Ubuntu installation without it. Following our super important rule from before, we're going to enable SSH first. This will create a rule that allows TCP traffic on port 22, which is the default SSH port. You can also write it explicitly with port number/protocol. In our case, we've already allowed the same rule using allow SSH, so we get told that the rule is already defined. Both do the same thing, but you'll need the explicit form for services that don't have a named rule like SSH. With SSH safely enabled, you can now cross your fingers and enable your firewall. As we can see, UFW is now running and will start automatically every time your server boots. You can run UFW status to see the defined rules. So now your server is locked down, but only SSH works, which isn't very helpful for a computer that's actually on the internet. So let's fix that. So let's say you're running a web application with Franken PHP and MySQL. You need HTTP and HTTPS open to the public, but MySQL should stay locked down. So we'll explicitly create a rule that says don't allow it. Franken PHP doesn't ship with the UFW application profile the way Nginx and SSH do. So you'll have to add your rules by port number and protocol. And then now you want to add an explicit deny rule for MySQL. It's not strictly necessary since UFW blocks everything by default, but it documents intent and stops someone from accidentally opening it later. Now we can verify our config and see exactly what's been defined using the UFW status command again. I like to think that anyone can look at this output and understand exactly what traffic your server accepts. I find that clarity is generally useful when I come back to the server 6 months later. Some services ship with named protocol, which is a bit cleaner than remembering port numbers. To see what's installed on your system, you can use UFW app list. In my case, we only have OpenSSH. However, if you install Nginx or Apache, their profiles should show up automatically, and you can use their named profile like this. Since Franken PHP doesn't ship with the UFW protocol, the manual port numbers that we did before are the right approach. Name profiles are convenient when they exist, but they're not required. So the downside to this setup is that your SSH port is open to the internet, which means bots are already trying to brute force their way in. You can check the auth.log if you don't believe me. You can watch it happen in real time sometimes. It's equal parts fascinating and horrifying. But fortunately, UFW has us covered. We can use UFW limit SSH. This will update your existing SSH rule to allow SSH, but with rate limited, which means that if someone tries to make more than 6 connections in 30 seconds, they get blocked. Legitimate users shouldn't have this, but automated scripts will definitely run into it. Now, over time, you'll need to clean up rules as your server changes. To see your rules with line numbers, you can run UFW status numbered, and then you can use UFW delete and the number to delete it. And if you ever want to completely reset your firewall rules, you can use UFW reset. That wipes out every rule and disables UFW. If you reset again, remember that one rule, allow SSH before you enable it again. It's also important to notice that during our reset, UFW backs up the rules just in case we didn't mean to, because there's no way back easily. As a brief recap, UFW is a readable front end for iptables. It makes firewall management something you can do in a few commands instead of an all afternoon. Allow SSH before enabling AFW, always, no exceptions. Use UFW allowed and UFW denied with port numbers for services like Franken PHP that don't have named profiles. Use UFW limit to throttle brute force login attempts. Use UFW status numbered to audit your rules, and UFW delete to remove the ones you no longer need. If this video helped you get your server locked down, make sure you subscribe and share it with someone who's running an unprotected server. It generally helps others find the channel. Do you want to see more videos like this? Let me know what deployments or DevOps topics are causing you headaches. You can comment below or message me on any of the social media platforms in the description. This is Scott Keckwarren for the PHP Architect channel signing off and reminding you to keep watching, keep coding, and keep reading.